What is going on, guys? It is the Anime Jaguar here, or you call me AJ for short if that is a tongueful for you. And today, to officially end the series, you guys thought I officially ended it last week, but no, I'm now going to officially rank all of the Disney eras. I've already ranked all of the individual movies, but in this video, I'm going to rank each and every single individual era. So if this is your first time watching one of my videos and you're wondering, where can I find these Disney era videos that we've been talking about? Up here or in the link in the description below. Let's begin. Number 7. The post-Renaissance era. After the wildly popular Disney Renaissance era, Disney was heading to another time of transition. Audiences' interest in traditional animated films started to decline as the success of the studios began to decline in critical and financial reception and production, as their films were slowly overshadowed by Pixar's pioneering CGI works and the recently emerging DreamWorks animation. This was the last age of traditional animated films until the effort to revive them a couple of years later. The studios started making their first animated CGI movies. The early examples show poor success and a reduction in the interest of the viewer. And this is probably my least hot take, because this is probably almost consensus. It's either this one or the Dark Age, which I'm going to get into soon. So let's go to the next era. Number 6. The Wartime Era. The bombing of Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941 took the Second World War to American soil, assuring U.S. entry into combat. The next day, Walt Disney's California studio became the first Hollywood film studio in history to be subject to military control, after it was occupied by the Army and partially converted into an anti-aircraft base holding over 500 U.S. troops. In addition, the government had engaged the assistance of Walt Disney and his studio team in producing films aimed at boosting national morality. Though Walt was more than willing to represent his country in every way imaginable, this agreement ended the uninterrupted 5-year artistic era from 1937 to 1942. And the reason why it's not the worst Disney era is because they didn't have much control over the movies they were releasing. All of them were package films, so there's nothing they could really do about that. So that's why it's second to last. Number 5. The Dark Age. After the death of Walt Disney in 1966, the Disney studio was in a state of disarray. Veteran storytellers failed to adjust to the rhythm of words without his leadership, and new studio heads were unable to balance his business skills. With more focus on making money than on creative brilliance, artists started to suffer under the constraints. The film budgets were cut as well. The Xerox process that originated in the Silver Age was extensively used, and the resulting scratchy, hideous animation became the era's default signature style. With Disney's veterans slowly retreating, the films were also taking longer to produce when a new generation of creators set out to learn the ropes. This 18-year period saw the introduction of only 8 animated films. Number 4. The Disney Renaissance. At the height of the financially, critically, and creatively disappointing Disney Dark Age, the studio executive Jeffrey Katzenberg was elected the new head of Disney Animation. He was charged with overseeing an aggressively merciless and gigantically profitable upheaval of animated films due to not only Katzenberg's efforts, but due to the efforts of Disney's newly trained animators. The spirit of classic Disney animation came back between 1989 and 1999. The studio faced an unprecedented revival with the release of 10 animated films that have been more critically and financially successful than any film since Walt's lifetime, some of them more than ever before. This led Disney to quickly becoming the powerhouse studio that it is today. This age became the Disney Renaissance. It started with The Little Mermaid and ended with Tarzan. And this is a hot take, I know. It's not number 1 like most people would have it. And the reason why is because, while they had some masterpieces in there, there are also some duds that kind of ruined it from not being number. If there weren't some duds like Pocahontas, Rescuers Down Under, and Hunchback of Notre Dame, this would easily be number 1, but those kind of ruined the reputation of Disney Renaissance for me a little bit, but it's still a great era nonetheless. Number 3. The Silver Age. At the end of the Second World War, after a series of mediocre films, Disney Studio was over $4 million in debt and near to bankruptcy. In order to save his studio, Walt Disney made his first fairy tale film in over a decade. Cinderella became Disney's greatest hit since Snow White in 1937. This revived Disney feature animation and gave rise to a new promising age. Unfortunately, other interests such as Disneyland and his newfound love for entertainment and live-action films altered Walt Disney's preferences. As a result, his personal oversight of animated films dwindled quickly, leaving the artistic staff unable to cope. With his passing in 1966, it would also be the last age to be overseen by him. As such, the period known as the Silver Age reveals the first fractures that contribute to the Dark Age. The Silver Age lasted from Cinderella in 1950 to The Jungle Book in 1967. It delivered some of Disney's most magical and unforgettable characters.
Number 2.
The Golden Age. Since he had great success with his animated shorts in the late 1920s and early 1930s, Walt Disney decided to push animation to the next level by doing something that no one had ever achieved before. He introduced feature-length animated stories to the large screen, using his Silly Symphony show as a stepping stone for his animators to experiment and refine their art. Walt leapt to the creation of his first film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Snow White's popularity in 1937 sparked a juggernaut in movies, and the public requested more feature animation, leading Walt to the unstoppable conquest of feature films. However, in 1942, this uninterrupted period of imagination would come to an end when the Second World War broke out. This 5-year era saw the debut of 5 classic animated films. Many of them were critical successes, but most of which were box office disasters that will continue to be regarded as the golden age of Disney animation.
Number 1.
The Revival Era. During Disney's executive shakeup in 2006, John Lasseter took over as Chief Officer of Disney Animation, and the studio was thrown into a dazzling new period known as the Disney Revival. This pushed the business away from the critical and commercial flops of the post-Renaissance era in the early 2000s. The Revival Era brought Disney's animation back to its glory days of the 1990s. This has helped the studio produce a variety of critically profitable, stunning films. Most of them are now considered to be Disney's greatest and most appreciated films of all time. The Revival Era is most noted for its short-lived renaissance of traditional animation, as well as its technical breakthrough in digital animation. The Disney Revival covers the full range of Lasseter's artistic success in Disney. And the reason why it's number 1 for me is because of all the fantastic films, and it's been consistent. There have been many duds. I don't think in my opinion, there are no duds in this era. The worst, spoiler if you haven't seen my ranking, is Ralph Breaks the Internet. And that's still a pretty good film for the most part. That has a few little problems. So when that's your worst film in an era, you know it's a great era. And in my opinion, it's the number 1 Disney animation era.
Thank you for watching this video. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe to the channel if you guys want to see more content like this. And don't forget about that playlist if you haven't seen any of my Disney era's ranking videos yet. And if you already have, you might as well watch it again if you don't have anything better to do. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.